going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company. Another video today. I've got a 1/2 ounce War Eagle all black spinnerbait, and in my opinion, if I could only throw one kind of spinnerbait for the rest of my life, it would be a single bladed Colorado spinnerbait, specifically a War Eagle. I love War Eagle spinnerbaits. I love this head, the little silver, or they're like bluish kind of sparkle eyes. They'll probably fall off eventually because they're just stickers, but nice black nickel Colorado blade. This is one of my favorite baits I've ever thrown. I know spinnerbaits are kind of the hardcore drop shot guys, or laugh a lot when you say spinnerbait, but single bladed Colorado blades I think are just super effective, super thumpy. Anyway, it's going to be an all black Arctic goat, black deer hair, and then black Titan dub in UV black hole. I'm not going to put any flash down because this Titan dub has some, like, it's definitely black and like a purplish flash in there. The reason I'm not using Senyo's is because this is much more black. Senyo's laser dub black isn't super duper black, and so I wanted this bait super dark all around. So this is spinnerbaits are a wide bait, so I don't need this bait to be 7 inches long. So it's going to probably run around 5. Now it's going to depend where you start measuring from. Do you measure from here? Do you measure from here? So it's totally up to you. I just know I'm going to go to about this clip right here. So I can measure this out, and I'm just going to cut it. I'm not going to fold it, the butts. I'm not going to fold them back. I'm going to cord up my thread. I'm just going to get that, so I'm going to do my Arctic goat, 1 stack here, 1 stack there with the dubbing too. These are really thick lead bodies, so you kind of, it's just a little, it's not like harder, it's just you have to decide if you want to really cover 360 around this. You're gonna have to use a lot of hair. I'm not gonna do that just because I don't necessarily want this bait to be gigantic. I just want it to be totally covered. So I'm not gonna spend a ton of time tearing off a bunch of black deer hair to get good coverage on this. I just picked some, and I just don't want this bait to be too puffy because it's already going to be a bigger bait. And that Colorado blade, I don't know what size it is, but it's definitely a bigger Colorado blade, and it's a 1/2 ounce bait, so it's heavy. So I can take my black, and I don't want it to go far down into my tail, so it's going to end up being shorter, definitely shorter than where my Arctic goat goes to. But yeah, these lead skirt body, or where you put the skirt, it's huge. So it's just, I mean, you would need a significant amount of deer hair to really cover all this super well. So it's going to look thin, but really it's not, because I know I know I'm saying I'm keeping this bait thin, but I'm using more bucktail than it looks on here. It's just, you gotta use with what you got. You gotta work with what you've got, and I can't call War Eagle and tell them to make thinner bodies. Now, I'm not worried about any flare or anything on this because I'm putting dubbing down anyway, so it's going to look like a super flat bait, but it's basically going to look dry almost, how it's going to look wet, because it's not going to change much except for the dubbing. I'm going to kind of just trim around here, just so I'm not pushing all that stuff up. So I'll just come up here, and I've got just a little bit of room. I want to save just a sliver right by the head. So I'm going to kind of tie this second stack closer to the back. But it's about as thick as the other one. So I'm going to go almost as long as that other one. And I'm not worried about leaving room. If you've watched any of the jig videos, you know I always go past the head so I can trim it. I'm not going to do that with this because, again, I have a dubbing head. So I'm just going to go right onto it. 2 wraps, then I can get it around. I'm really going to run out of hair trying to get this pushed all around. Comb that out. There's some life in this hair. Just want to get it pushed all the way around somewhat evenly. But again, I'm going to have what look like kind of bare spots, but they're not bare spots, it's just all thin. But luckily it's black anyway, it's all black, so it's just going to look like one big clump anyway. So I can get this cinched down well. I'm using 210 Danvilles Flymaster Plus. I really don't care about the type of thread. I've got some Vivas for smaller stuff, but so maybe I'm going to take just a little. I really want to be careful because I don't know. War Eagles are really, really good spinnerbaits, but I don't know how good of a paint job they do. So I'm going to really be careful trimming some of this hair off so I can put my dubbing down, because I just don't want to chip that paint. So, Nightmare Musky Flies, Titan dub. I cut it in half. If I didn't cut it in half, it would go down to like right here, and I really don't need that. It's super thin anyway. It's not gonna super bulk up your head a ton unless you use a ton of it. But I really didn't want it to be super long, so I cut it in half. And I'm gonna do that. I'll get my thread right up on my head. Give it a loose wrap. Get that ripple ice fiber out of the way. And then I can just kind of fan this out. And I want to make sure I have a lot of it on top. And then I'm going to kind of hold it and get a tight wrap. Because I tend to, when you wrap this, it's going to roll onto the side. So you just want to be careful with that. So I'll take my second stack. Again, I cut this in half. So I'm going to put it down about 50-50. I can kind of separate this a little from my hook. I'll just put that down. Give it a loose wrap. And then a nice little tight one. And when you comb this out, because I cut it in half, I'll probably lose quite a bit. But that's alright. Because when you cut it in half and then try to restack it, I'm already pulling some out. So that looks decent. It's always tricky. Dubbing heads are harder than they look. If you see someone do it really well, then it's going to be perfectly even all around, or sometimes just top and bottom. But dubbing's definitely harder than it looks. And I really just started getting into this type of dubbing head this year. I really hadn't done a ton before this. So you can see when I pull this back, hopefully, and I gotta comb it out still, but you hope that there's just a little bit of a head right here. This is a half ounce, so it's actually a really big head. So I didn't want a really thin body. Half ounce spinnerbait is a pretty heavy spinnerbait, but with that Colorado blade, it's gonna sink slower than you think, because that Colorado blade's gonna flutter in the water and slow that sink rate down. And it also helps if you're using a Colorado blade and it's a light head, it might roll on you if you reel too fast. So whenever I'm throwing a Colorado, even if it's a smaller blade, I usually throw at least a 3/8 ounce head, because I don't want it to roll. So I can get that on, and then whip finishing on a spinnerbait is annoying. So I'm just gonna do some half hitches. Maybe 3, and then I'll put a little bit of head cement on there just to hold everything together, and then I can get this wet. Dubbing looks like a nightmare until you get it wet, but just pulling it back a little, you can kind of see I just want a little body. It's almost just like a streamer, and I've tied some jig videos like this too, but it's just a little bit different. So I'm going to get this wet, I'll get this blade back on, and we'll see. Alright, so turned out decent. That tail's super thin, but that deer hair kind of pokes through. When you get it wet and then it dries, that deer hair doesn't absorb any water, but that dubbing does. So wherever there isn't dubbing, it's kind of that deer hair separates quickly. But single bladed Colorado War Eagle spinnerbait, half ounce, little streamer-ish. I guess if this wasn't here, that'd kind of be a streamer, little fat streamer. But like and comment, subscribe. More jigs coming, more spinnerbaits, a couple musky ones I'm starting to tinker around with a little bit, but we're getting into summer. I'm fishing a lot, so I'm just trying to keep at this too. So Junior's Fishing Company, juniorsfishing.com. See you on the next one.